你好吗？我是 Aaron Chen.
Y soy Alex Couturier.
Ici está Gordando Burnaby Connect. Alors, pourquoi parlons-nous dans les langues différentes?
Because this month's theme is cultural appreciation, so be prepared to appreciate some culture.
My everyday name is Dr. Michael D'Angeli.
And my everyday name is Mike D'Angeli.
Git Hayek means pupil of the Copper Shield in the Cinematography language. And the language Cinematography is shared by 3 different nations, the Tsimshian, Niska, and Gitsan people. And specifically the name of our dance group is in the Tsimshian dialect.
Our culture is everything. You know, it's what we're doing right now. It's a modification of storytelling. It's sharing our rights and privileges by sharing it with whoever will be watching this. But it's also when we perform and sing, it's exercising those rights and privileges to our audience. My wife and I talk about metaphorically rolling out our longhouse floor and following the protocols and the teachings that we have, and then rolling it back up at the end because we're sharing so much of who we are. We're honoring these teachings that have gone back since the beginning of time that we were fortunate enough to get from my grandparents, my mother, our aunties, our uncles. And so culture is so much. The one thing, because growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was still very new. You know, my grandmother was really worried about us growing up in Southeast Alaska, not knowing who we are and where we come from. I credit growing up with my grandparents and learning our culture, learning our ways. I really credit that for getting me through those really difficult times.
So I ask William Likilaha to send the help and the prayers and the energy to take care of the work that we have to do to putting my grandmother to rest this weekend. It is through her that I'm able to sing this song, so I dedicate it to my grandma.
You know, my grandparents putting a drum in my hand and telling me going up to the feast hall, you know, and that saved me. That helped me find my way back to wherever I was at to where I'm at now.
Gung haggis fat choy.
Wait, what?
Gung haggis fat choy.
Isn't it Gung Hei Fak Choi?
Well, Ted Wong might say a little differently, and here's why.
Gung haggis fat choy. Could you imagine bagpipes playing the Chinese song Moli Wat, Jasmine Flower, or Scottish instruments doing a mashup with the Chinese erhu violin? Hi, my name is Todd Wong. I'm the founder of Gung haggis fat choy, a Robbie Burns Chinese New Year dinner. Many, many years ago, I was a student at Simon Fraser University. I was one of the university tour guides, and we were asked to help carry the haggis for a Robert Burns celebration. And nobody really wanted to have to wear a kilt in winter and carry the haggis. But I thought, okay, I'll do it. And it's a statement of multiculturalism. I'm learning about one of Canada's founding ethnic groups, the Scots. And it just happened that January 25th was 2 days away from Chinese New Year that year. And we put it together as a cultural mashup. And I said, Gung haggis fat choy. And I guess the rest has been history. Here we have the Robert Burns statue in Vancouver Stanley Park. So it has some of the words of Robert Burns here, some of his most famous words, and they are, "Then let us pray that come it may, as come it will, for all that man to man, the whole world over, shall brothers be for all that." And I think it ties in very nicely with Lord Stanley. He is there with his arms stretched open, and he says, or this park is dedicated to the use of people of all colors, creeds, and customs. So it's very nice. We have to celebrate the poetry of Robert Burns because it's traditional for a Burns supper. But we're also going to celebrate Asian Canadian poets. It's a wonderful way to celebrate our Asian Canadian history with our Scottish Canadian history. Welcome to Chinatown. This is my ancestral home. My parents, my grandparents have all lived here. Here we are at the Chinese Canadian Pioneer Monument. Here we have a Canadian soldier. And that was a time when Canadians of Chinese ancestry were not allowed in the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force. And so it was a very, very big thing for the Chinese Canadian soldiers to be admitted into the Army and to fight for Canada, because there was the Racist Head Tax and Exclusion Act. And my granduncle, Daniel Lee, he was one of the first people in the Canadian Air Force. And after the war, he came back, and he and his friend Roy Ma, they petitioned the Canadian government to repeal the Exclusion Act so that we could be recognized as equal Canadian citizens. And it was very, very major. You know that song? Yeah, Odd Lang Syne. So Robbie Burns wrote the...
Gung Hei Fat Choi.
Is it not Gung Hagus Fat Choi now?
No, because we're going to the Chinese New Year's Festival. Come with us. Next up is Bracken. You better not be slacking, because he'll be tracking as he talks about art, the start of the heart. So be prepared for the best part.
Wicka, wicka, wicka.
Word.
My name is Bracken Hanyus-Corlett. I'm a multimedia artist located in Vancouver in the Sunshine Coast. I primarily do visual arts like painting and sculpture, but I also perform live visuals with different DJ collectives. So I've been working in the arts since 2001. I started working in theater for about 5 years, mainly as a technician, but I also did some performance work. And then I did also some singing and rapping and things like that in my youth. And these days I started performing with live visuals in 2011. For me, culture is very important. I come from mixed blood, Indigenous and European. I didn't really grow up with a lot of cultural teachings, but after I left high school, I moved in with my mom for a couple of years, and she kind of got me involved in different aspects of the culture, going back home. And I was already doing visual arts, but I started incorporating that into my own art. And it's important to me to represent that where I'm from, but also kind of reflect where I'm at today and where the world is at today. I got asked by Ryan McMahon, who's an Indigenous comedian and artist, performer. He runs this network called IndianandCowboy.com, and he asked me to do this, a design for him basically to kind of market his podcasting platform. He asked me to riff on the name Indian and Cowboy. And on the West Coast, we don't have the same experience as the Plains with Indians and cowboys. If you look at the image, it could look violent, but I wanted it to be like a counteraction to violence. So the image where it's coming out of the gun and then going back in towards it, it's basically like a return fire of like some kind of trickster energy. That piece is called Watchman in the Sky with Diamonds, and it's basically like I've been doing collage art since I was a kid, and so there's not like a ton of meaning behind it. It's like a mix of a bunch of different images that I had done, and I like doing collage and mashup, so that was basically an expression of that. A watchman is a figure that keeps an eye on your territory for you and keeps an eye out for you, so that'd be that character. And then there's just kind of an intermingling of like constellations and salmon and shapes. I don't know, it's open to interpretation, I guess, that piece. I would say it's kind of surreal. Yeah, traveling around is basically, it's one of the best parts about being an artist, I think. Like, get to see new places. I've been up to the Yukon, like to the East Coast, down in the States. So I got to see like Chicago and Halifax, places I probably wouldn't have gone on my own, and show the art that I do where I'm from. So it's to audiences that wouldn't have normally seen kind of stuff that I do.
Hey, what are you?
I'm trying to look cinematic in front of the camera.
Well, either way, you won't be as cinematic as the Cinematography project coming up next.
You want to bet?
You're on. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Comment ça va?
Comment ça va?
Ma journée était fantastique. J'ai mangé un burrito et dormi beaucoup à la maison.
You're the worst French teacher. And I wanted to learn about the culture too.
Well, you can learn both from Maurice Fouquet.
Sounds great. Merci beaucoup.
My name is Maurice Fouquet, and I'm a Burnaby High School teacher, 10 years now in the district. I teach French. I'm a rare breed. I'm a French-Canadian from Maillardville, BC, a little French-Canadian town that almost doesn't exist anymore. I think there's no one French-Canadian culture. You know, one thing I remember really denying vehemently when I was a kid was, they'd say, so you're Québécois, and I'd say, I'm not Québécois. I'm a Western French-Canadian, and that's usually what I identify myself as. That'll mean any Francophones that left Quebec and made their stops mostly in the prairies, and eventually who made their way all the way to the West Coast. And that's what my parents did, and both families moved out from little towns, little French towns in the prairies. Growing up in Millardville, I used to call myself Morris, not Maurice, because I didn't want people to know. It wasn't advantageous, it wasn't good. You know, and especially once bilingualism came along and people were ramming French down our throats kind of thing, right? Yeah, I wouldn't say I denied my French Canadianness, I just didn't announce it, you know? And I think a lot of kids, I say something like that, I think a lot of kids of this generation, teenagers of this generation, can totally relate to that. You know, they don't want to dwell upon their ethnicity. They just want to fit in like anybody. They just want to be like anybody, right? Language is the vehicle of culture. We carry around our culture. How do we carry it around? With our language. People get, you know, they get judgmental and they say, you know, they see these people of some ethnic group and they're walking around and they're speaking Greek or they're speaking, you know, Mandarin or they're speaking Tagalog or I don't care what language it is. People say, why can't they speak English? And it's like, if I took you, a bunch of English speakers, and I put you anywhere else in the world, what do you think you would be doing 24 hours a day, all day long? You'd be speaking English. It's normal. It's normal to want to express yourself in the language that you can express yourself most intelligently in. One thing about French culture and French Canada is I think we're really good about embracing all those different kinds of French Canadian. I'm not saying we were always good at that, but about just being excited about being able to, especially in the West here, being able to speak French with somebody. Like, I could care less where they're from. If they come from somewhere different, hey, we just have more to talk about. Instead of, you know, oh, I know you, you know me, you like this, you think that way. You know, the further away they are from now, we're more like, oh, that's great. You know, let's find out about each other in French, because we love the French language.
Alex, I'm hungry.
Again?
Hey, my stomach has a mind of its own.
Well, lucky for you, we got a professional Chinese noodle maker to noodle your cadoodles.
What are cadoodles?
Don't worry about it.
Oh.
我是从中国的中部有个省份叫甘肃兰州，是它的省会。上学学习不太好，爸爸妈妈就说去学习拉面。这样学习拉面以后呢，来到加拿大移民的时候，96年移民的时候，我们就开始开了一个拉面店。刚开始人们都不知道我们在做什么，然后后来我们有这个2000年的时候，有个《纽约时报》报道了一下我们才像这种 media 才开始关注我们。很多客人喜欢看我们拉面，我们怎么展示给人家的拉面，这点特别重要。尤其是老外啊，特别喜欢，特别尊重你们的文化，觉得这种东西你们沿袭下来，觉得是一个很好的事情，而没有用机器去代替，我们还是用手拉这样。我觉得特别重要，这点我就特别享受，就是把我们中国的这个传统的这些文化，还是原汁原味的展现给老外。方法太重要，我觉得一定要按兰州的方法去做，不要变，因为你变了之后它的味道就会变。还有一个兰州牛肉面，比如说一定要放萝卜进去，你要是不放萝卜，它把那个味道就不会 balance， 就不会平衡这样。所以说一定要按国内的方法来做。我觉得这一点就是传下来一定要这样传下去，你不能把它改得乱七八糟，是不是？这点是一个习俗，一个传统。那面呢？首先面呢，我们这边的面都会有筋在里边，就是这边的面粉质量比较好，它的筋呢就是比较高。那么我们先用机器呢把它的筋要打掉一些，但你不想全部把它搅掉，因为全部搅掉那样面的口感就会不好。那么会加一些盐呀、一些食用碱呀，然后来增加它的筋的强度， 然后我们再用把它溜面的方式把它溜一溜，把它均匀化，因为面的纹理里面是乱的，那么你在溜面的时候就会把它均匀化，那么均匀化你拉出来的面就是非常均匀的，然后你再用折的方法把它折一次啊，通过你折的方式，每次它都会被双倍啊，一根变成2根，2根变成4根，4根变成8根，这样的话每一根就相对来就越来越细了，就这样，然后你再把它放到开水里面去煮。汤是我们用牛骨啊，用牛肉啊，然后还有鸡骨啊，我们放在一起炖的。我们比如说要放一些大料啊，草果呀、小茴香啊、桂皮，还有花椒，还有洋葱啊、姜，来把它的腥味去掉。那么这样的话，这汤的味道就会更足一点。兰州牛肉面上一定要放辣椒油，就放很多辣椒油才会有那种味道。那最早的时候牛肉面也不是这样做的，可能就是简单的一碗面，但是呢，通过可能几百年的慢慢的演变和这个人们的更加完善，把它的味道做得越来越像现在的味道。吃拉面，我就觉得要真正成为一个好的拉面师，必须要至少经过3个月以上的就是全职的 training， 才会成为一个真正合格的。因为拉面它是跟温度、跟你的水，还有跟你每次和面的时间有关系。那么你要把它控制好每次都拉出均匀的又有口感的拉面，是需要时间来积累的不像机器面，你定好出来机器一压都是一样的尺寸，可是手拉的面是真正不同，一个人和一个人拉出来手感都会有很大的不同。
Hey, Alex, do you have a minute?
Yeah, what's up?
Well, since our show is about culture appreciation, I was wondering what our peers thought about the subject.
Well, consider the job done. Coming up next, the rant with Morgan.
Do you know about cultural appropriation? I'm going to tell you about it. Canada is one of the most culturally diverse places in the world. People from all different places around the world come to live here, and because of this, we get to learn about their different ways of life and heritage. This makes Canada super interesting and diverse, and many people here are very open-minded. Unfortunately, one thing that comes with such a diverse set of people is cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation is the act of taking elements from someone else's culture and using it in your own way without knowledge of what it really means. This is a problem because the original meaning of the cultural elements are often lost or distorted. This often results in stereotyping, misrepresentation, and loss of individualism. Some examples of this are girls wearing bindis to raves or people dressing up as Indians for Halloween. It can be extremely offensive and it's unfair to the people of those cultures. We can prevent this by educating ourselves on ways to appreciate culture instead of stealing it. As long as we're multicultural in a politically correct way, we can stop cultural appropriation and make Canada a better place.
Wow, Morgan really killed that rant.
Yeah, let's take it one step further.
Well, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about changes in Canadian culture. There's a lot of immigrants coming to Canada, and I want to find out what people are doing to help them.
Well, there's a club already doing that. It's called Cultural Embrace. So let's get going and check out the place.
All right.
What's prank? What is prank? Print. Got it.
The most important thing is no matter what kind of culture we are from, all the students need to be respectful.
I came to Canada 3 or 4 years ago when I was grade 9. Yeah, and then I became the founding members of the Embrace Club.
Everyone is special, everyone is unique, and they all have different needs, but for new immigrants and different cultural people, they may have different needs from others, and the teachers in classes may not recognize that.
One of the students approached me. She is one of the newcomers a few years ago, and she was saying that she finds it at the beginning is really difficult to adjust.
We all feel like lonely and kind of depressed when we first came to Canada. We have no friends and our English skills not that good.
When the newcomers come, the culture, the education system, everything is very new. is very different from their own country, and there is a sense of loss.
I'm actually one of the few immigrants, actual Canadian citizens in the Embrace Club.
Most I learned is the leadership skills maybe, and how to treat others and how to get along with others, because I wasn't too good at that, get along with others when I was in grade 9, grade 10.
I'm not technically Chinese. I view myself more Canadian, so I don't really know what they feel, but I've learned that more about what they need and more how to communicate with people.
We don't really talk about, oh, you're from here or you're from there. So we want to let everybody know that, okay, we come from different country and now we're in Canada.
Well, that's all we have for today.
Thanks for watching. Tune in next time.
Bye-bye now.